afternoon, everyone. So today's presentation is being given by the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women. Cheyenne Antonio is Dene from Torreon of Pueblo Pintado, New Mexico. She received her BA in Native American Studies from the University of New Mexico. She focuses on addressing violence against Native women and environmental racism within border towns and in rural communities. Cheyenne brings a critical perspective on the differences between consensual sex work and sex trafficking. Cheyenne is a leader and political educator on the colonial violence of fracking across Dene lands and how fracking contributes to health inequities for Native peoples, the most impacted from hundreds of toxic pollinates, displacement, homelessness, sexual violence, and murder. We will also be, Honey Sunday will also be joining Cheyenne Antonio, and she assists with the trainings and workshops CSVANW organizes. She is an advocate to help bring awareness to the needs of the Indigenous trans community. She is always down to offer fresh ideas and ways to increase awareness and understanding the issues with domestic and sexual violence happening to our elders and youth in our Native communities to the public. So let's give them a nice warm welcome.
Hi, hi. My name is Honey Sunday. I am the project and media assistant at the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women. I support the coordinators at CSVNW with trainings and presentations that we attend and put out to the community. And I'm Dene, and my clans are Kiani, the Towering House clan, and Kachini, Red Running into the Water People clan. And Sharon, if you want to introduce yourself before I give us some helpful tips during your little workshop, that'd be super cool.
Yeah, hi, Honey. Hi, everyone. That's A. My name is Cheyenne Antonio, and I'm the Sex Trafficking Project Coordinator with the Coalition, and Honey and I are very happy to be here with you all. And yeah, so thank you, Honey. I'm Dene Hartson Shle. I'm Meadow people, born for Red Running into Water. My maternal grandfathers are of the Mud Clan, and then my paternal grandfathers are the Towering House people. And so thank you all. And go ahead, Honey.
All right, just some helpful tips during our little workshop for this little hour is the material that is being presented may be heavy and could cause discomfort. However, we encourage you to take care of yourself and utilize these recommended tips that can assist you with being present during the workshop. One of them is to have medicine nearby, sage, cedar, or medicine bundles. Another one is grounding tools nearby, Play-Doh, stress ball, fidget spinners, and choose to learn from a place that soothes you, like next to a window or to look outside. For example, keep water and healthy snacks nearby, be gentle with yourself and take breaks as needed. Engage in breathing exercises if you guys feel discomfort all of a sudden. And just know that me and Shia will be here, and I'm sure others will be here on standby if you have any questions. And feel free to use the chat box for questions or comments. And we will establish a community agreement for respectful dialogue. And go for it, Cheyenne.
Thank you, Honey. All right, moving forward. Today's discussion, what will we be talking about is the root cause of MMIW, the action steps to take after, but also all in all, what is MMIW, what's going on right now as far as, the response from nations. If you don't know, there are 24 nations and pueblos within the state of New Mexico. We work with all of them, and we figure out how to assist the best way we can. In ways that we assist, we focus on policy advocacy, training and education, technical assistance, and support. And so if a nation or a pueblo would need help on teen dating violence and understanding how that, the structure of that, and the resources that we need to order to help our young people, usually we would ask our Native Youth Coordinator. We do have a Native Youth Coordinator. Her name is Jovia Belgard. They do a really good job in connecting with young people, and they actually they organize a Native Youth Summit, which helps give like organizing tools, how to organize. And if you're interested in that, definitely hit up our website at csvanw.org. So those are ways that we support and help with our nations and our pueblos. Let's see. Thank you for sharing Honey's information. Honey, thank you for sharing Jovita's information. Oh my God. And violence is a structure, not an event. And this was said by Patrick Wolf. In ways of explaining violence within the coalition, we look at violence as a structure, not an event. So the violence has always been here, right? Like the violence has been here since the founding, not the founding, I feel like that's a very genocidal way, but the way the United States was created was done through violence, right? In forced removal from our traditional homelands. There were policies and laws that were put in place to put Native people in reservations, and they used like the Dawes Act and the Indian Removal Act to do that. So that's how we have reservations, right? Rather than allowing us to be on our homelands, right? For the Net person, our homelands is within the 4 sacred mountains, and that goes, within Colorado all the way to Arizona, up into Durango, all the way to Alamosa, Colorado, then down to Mount Taylor, which is near Grants. And so like that's our traditional homelands as the Net people. And so in the Treaty of 1868, right, the Navajo Long Walk, we were forcibly removed from our homelands from, where like Canyon de Chelly, Arizona, all the way to Fort Sumner, which is more than 400 miles, and people were forced to move because of the Indian Removal Act. And so these policies are heavily violent. It's forced erasure, and there's laws and policies to do that. And so we see that today with the consistent attack on our lands and our bodies, right, through the NoDAPL movement. And we'll talk about the NoDAPL movement. I have a couple of slides on it. But we see this consistent attack, right now with the oil and gas industry. Thankfully, there is a small hold on it that the Biden administration has held. However, there's states, like New Mexico, where we have Michelle Lujan Grisham advocating to open more lands to drill without the consent of the tribes and the pueblos. And so that's a consistent attack on our lands without our consent. And consent is a huge thing, right? Consent is permission. Consent is asking permission. You need consent, if you want to hug someone, asking for their consent. Can I hug you? Consent to hold or pet someone's dog. Asking that consent first, and consent goes a long ways. It doesn't just mean to our bodies, but it also means our lands, right? Is it okay to drill? Is it okay to use the water in order to drill? So there are definitely layers of this violence that we have to navigate together in order to get to the root of the problem, get to the root of violence, getting to the root of violence. So if you have any questions, definitely ask in the chat box. I encourage everyone to ask questions. And so border town violence, what is that, right? Border town violence is a geographic location near an Indian reservation and or community. If you don't know, Albuquerque is a border town. Albuquerque, north of Albuquerque is Sandia land. Oh, I forgot to do a land acknowledgement. Oh my God. Whose lands are we on? Right now, I'm in Albuquerque. I'm not sure where folks are right now, but I'm on Tiwa lands. So the lands that belong to Esleda and Sandia Pueblo. And so right now, like where I'm on these lands. I'm unsure where folks are, but it's important to acknowledge whose lands you are. And I'm sorry I didn't do that in the very beginning. But Albuquerque is a border town, right? It's nearing or it's on these sacred Tiwa lands. And yeah, so a lot of natives depend on the resources within these border towns like employment, food, education, access to health services and social services, and conducting business in general. And let's see, within these border towns, there are a disproportionate criminal conviction rate of Native people when compared to non-Native people. In Albuquerque, there is a disproportionate rate of violence against Native women. Not too long ago in January, we received word that there was a Native woman named Jolie Nez who was found dead within the Metropolitan Detention Center. Sorry, the words are really twisty. And when we found out how she was, criminalized, it was unfair. And so we can talk about that later too, because the coalition did write a statement on it, and we encourage you or an organization that you're a part of, or if you care about Native women, definitely uplift that statement, because we need young people to take on this work, and we need allies. If you're not Native, we need allies to help our nations and our pueblos, helping us look for our relatives, helping us bring more awareness to this, because the systems can only handle so much and do so much for our relatives. And in order to move forward, we have to do this together. And we did get a question, would you be able to send more information about this coalition? Yes, we can. So when we are talking about consent, I kind of touched on the consent of the land and how land and body violence has always been here, right? This is a 500-year struggle of missing and murdered Indigenous people. When a system or a government is founded, it's at the cost of someone or something, right? When the United States was founded, or when the United States stole land from Indigenous people, it had to come at the cost of lives. It had to come at the cost of water and animals and plants. And so this is one of the oldest cases, and actually the birth of the FBI. And if you'd like to read this book, it's a good book. I think they're actually going to make a movie on this, and Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the settlers, who stole land, and they're going to tell that story through that movie. But I highly encourage y'all to look at this and read it. It's about Native women who owned the land. It's called the Osage Murders. Native women, right? Native Osage women actually held these lands and caretake them, and the non-Native folks would know that, and would know that they're sitting on high amounts of oil, and so they came in and married them, targeted them and married them, and then ended up killing them. So this goes to say, like, what happens to our bodies happens to our lands, and this is very frequent, and this is somewhat normalized to this day, because we do see, again, a high amount of oil on our territories. After they removed us and relocated Native people, they actually relocated us on lands that had high amounts of oil. And so that's where you see a lot of this happening. And you see this in North Dakota, the Bakken shell beds, right? That's within the 3 affiliated tribes. You see this in Oklahoma with the Osage murders. You see this, you just see this with tribes. You see this with nations and pueblos. And so I just would like to acknowledge that and see where y'all, like, just to locate where y'all could read and learn more about it. On land and body violence, because if we're talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women, if we're talking about sex trafficking, we can't do this without acknowledging the harm that's being done to the land also. And so with this, back in 2016, the FBI director acknowledged that when there is oil, there is crime. When there's oil, there is crime. And I do like the comment that Jaden added, capitalism is the root of evil. I agree, Jaden. That is honestly the root cause of all of this is capitalism. How much does capitalism, right? Money. How much of this how much power money has over our nation, of us, right? How much money owns us, how much we have to work for money, to support our families, to support, our communities. The root cause of all of it is money. Thank you, Jaden. That's a really good response to all of this. And yeah, the root cause of like sex trafficking is capitalism. Capitalism harms us all. And with capitalism comes, right, oil and crime. And yeah, so thank you, Jaden. You kind of like hit it right in the middle of all of this. And I just want to also acknowledge our sister here, Olivia Lone Bear, who is from a nation up north, and she went missing for 8 months. She was dating an oil and gas worker, and when she went missing for 8 months. Within that 8 months, her brother was actually the one who led her investigation, because within this field and demanding justice, when a Native person goes missing, depending on jurisdiction, you will hear time and time again, like, jurisdiction is a hard issue within Indian territories, because white supremacy, the laws of white supremacy is who controls tribal law. And with that, with the investigation with Olivia Lone Bear, you had the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you had the nation, the Fort Berthold nation there, and then you had the FBI, and then you had North Dakota Police Department. So that's like 4 different entities there that the family has to work with. And so thankfully for Olivia's brother, he led all of that. He made sure that everyone communicated. He made sure that the investigations, the stories, that he made sure that they were heard. And he was the one who actually found her under a lake, strapped to her truck. And I know this is a lot of heavy information, so please take care of yourself. Please drink some water, and hold space for yourself, as Honey said earlier. So just, I just want to acknowledge that a part of this MMIW movement, we have to center the family. We have to make sure that the family's being heard, and that the trust, I'm pretty sure we all have a distrust right now with the system, and just through and through with the MMIW struggle, we have to make sure that families are at the forefront, and that these systems like the FBI or APD or Mexico State, that they're returning their reports back to families, and they're making sure that families are a part of this. And so, yeah, so just acknowledge that NoDAPL, North Dakota Access Pipeline, this was a big movement that happened, and you know, it was beautiful to see. I went there. I actually cooked up the storm. They were asking for a Dene person to make some bread, and I was right there. So I was like, I could do it, even though I really didn't want to, and I wanted to go and meet new folks. I had, you know, it's sort of our cultural duty to be in solidarity. And so I helped make bread and stew and cut up watermelon for our relatives there, doing the hard work, being at the front lines, telling the police no. And with this pipeline, right, we all saw how oil industries are more important than Indigenous peoples. And so that, again, that's harm. That's a way of taking our sovereignty and undermining it, again, as Indigenous peoples. And this is a form of violence and taking away our sacred territories and using it for the interest of oil and gas. And so I feel like with this time, we did see how white supremacy flexes, right? How white supremacy overtakes Native people in our ways. Like, I feel like white supremacy harms us all through the laws and policy. And so this is just one of the ways that they do it. And they continue to do it. And I will share this. Hopefully it goes through. Come on. Let me see. I would really like to show this video because it highlights just how young people basically navigated the movements. And NoDAPL was actually founded because of young people, because young people took a stand and they were like, nope, you can't do this to us anymore. Through Sacred Stone Camp, let's see, how can I stop sharing? Let me see. Let me see. Uh-oh. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I'm gonna look for this real quick and then I'm gonna bring it back up. Usually that video plays real quick, but this time around, and so I would like to thank Caleb for inviting us back to do this with y'all. And we do believe that young people will guide us to a better future. And I would like to encourage y'all to definitely take those leadership positions, take those opportunities and bring them back, right? So can y'all see this? Can y'all see the video? Okay, I'm gonna play it right now. I can create the account.
Shine, you can't really hear the sound.
Never ends. Well, I'm gonna go make some food.
And are you the only guy in this youth group?
No, there's another one, but he couldn't come.
So there. How about now? Can you hear
You
it?
can hear the sound, but it's kind of like chopping up, I guess.
How about now?
It's really choppy.
Back at the camp, some youth from the Fort Berthold Reservation are visiting. Their community, a 3.5-hour drive north of Standing Rock, has been heavily fracked over the last decade. And are you the only guy in this youth group?
No, there's another one. But he couldn't come.
So there's how many boys?
There's 3.
3?
Yeah.
Like why do you think it's young women stepping up into this fight?
When I was younger, and I remember it like changing because of the oil coming in, and like you like going to new town and you could just see like wells, oil wells everywhere you look. Like a long time ago, it wasn't like that. Like it's just basically destroying our land up there, and like our tribal leaders don't really care because all they see is the money and everything. It's really taken over our people. We don't feel safe in our own communities anymore because of all the men that the oil brought in, because like the economy and the jobs and everything. You can get just picked up off of the sidewalk or wherever you are. Someone can just steal you.
You can just get stolen? And what happens to you?
You can get raped, you can get killed.
Or sold?
Yeah, multiple times.
Sold to who?
Different men.
The oil boom in North Dakota has brought an influx of money to the region, but with it has come drugs, crime, and sex trafficking. In the community of Fort Berthold, there has been a 168% increase in violent assaults against women. Man camps, the temporary lodging set up to house oil workers, has put women's lives at risk, and tribal police officers can do little to stop it. The United States Supreme Court stripped tribes of the right to arrest non-natives who commit crimes on reservation land, sending a strong message that on Indian land, criminals can get away with almost anything.
It's scary to think that you guys are scared to walk out your own doors. It's scary to think that that could become what our community is like.
I refuse to let that happen to me or like any of us, you know what I mean? Like anybody in our community. That's why I'm like doing this. That's why I'm standing up. But I want to use my voice because it can't continue to go on how it is going up there. So.
Hoye ma kiayo, chema kiayo.
Family and friends, along with search and rescue teams, have been looking for Selena Not Afraid.
Thank you all. Okay, let's get back to. So with that, it's a very powerful video. And it definitely centered young people because young people are the fire, right? Young people are the ones who will stop normalizing white supremacy and the harm that's being done to us. And so with that, in moving forward, I wanted to share what does the industry development look like across sacred lands and Chaco Canyon, right? The struggle of protecting our place of emergence. And it's not just Chaco Canyon, right? That we have our sacred sites all along in here near Farmington. We have this here, the Bistka wilderness monument, and we have sacred territories all along here that doesn't only belong to Dene people, but to Pueblo people, to Apache folks. And right now, all of that is being targeted and has been violated by the oil and gas industry. And so these little dots here, these are active wells. And so right now, there's a lot of conversation around protecting Chaco Canyon right here of a 10-mile buffer zone, a 20-mile buffer zone, a 30-mile buffer zone, or a 40-mile buffer zone. And so I just want y'all to see like how does that relate to New Mexico? how much impact oil and gas has on not only the northwest part of the state, but within the southeast part of the state, where like in Carlsbad and Hobbs, and our relatives down there, you know, their struggles is also our struggles. This isn't only an Indigenous issue, this is a human rights issue. Everyone deserves clean water, everyone deserves clean air, and who will be the ones who have to take care of this once the older generation has, you know, gone forward? Who will caretake for that? And it will be us, right? It will be us that has to take care of that. And so I just want y'all to know that our water is constantly at a threat for the name of capitalism, and these white supremacist laws are allowing it to do so. I did get a question. Can you expand a little more about the laws they mentioned in the video about how non-natives can't be punished? I've never heard this before. Yeah, so non-natives target our jurisdictions, right? This is how earlier I've stated how jurisdiction is very complex. Jurisdiction is hard because let's say, oh, I think I have a thing on this. Yeah, so jurisdiction. I'll get to that in the next slide real quick. But this WPX fracking storage units exploded in Naizi. This is not too far from my home. And Kendra Pinto here is our sister. She's a really good advocate for our homelands. Definitely look her up in the work that she's doing and uplift it. But WPX, right? The storage, these storages exploded in the middle of the night, and you know, there are people who live here, and that's something like within the greater Chaco struggle that, you know, it seems like it's focused too much, not focused too much, like there's a lot of focus, I guess that's a better way to say it, there's a lot of focus on the national park itself, but not the people who live there. And so this WPX units that were exploded, this was not too far from Chaco Canyon. And you know, there are people who live there, and I come from there, so I'm from this area. And so when talking about jurisdiction, there was actually more cops and more response from law enforcement to these fracking storages units exploding than people getting harmed or being murdered. So this here. So that was a good question about jurisdiction and how non-natives. So we a part of, like, I guess, white supremacy, and how white supremacy has more has a lot of power over our nations and our pueblos is through jurisdiction. So here you see this map here. This is called a checkerboard region, checkerboard land type. And this exists with nations and pueblos, so it's not just a Navajo issue. I guess this is everyone's issue, right? As I was saying earlier. So like you see these here, I know this is super tiny, but you have BLM lease land, you have Navajo trust land, you have BIA Indian allotment land, which is federal. Like, so there's state lands, there's federal lands, there's private lands, there's tribal lands. And so there's like 4 or 5, there's different types of ownerships here. Like, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different types of jurisdictions here. But it could go down to like at least 4 or 5 because the federal government, they own some of these here. I did see a hand raised. Would anyone like to share their question real quick? I saw a hand raised. Okay, we will move forward. If the relative who showed their hand raised their hand, may you please put your question in the chat box? Thank you. Okay, so non-natives. So if a non-native were to commit domestic violence to a native person, or yeah, so if that were to happen on state land, we would have to know where exactly what lands we're on. And oftentimes it gets so complicated and so complex that, you know, we wouldn't even get law enforcement to come out. So let's say here, state land, here, this number 15 box right here, this blue one. So if there were a DV or maybe a sex trafficking case that were to happen there, and someone called it in, it would actually take about 2 to 3 hours for the state to figure out, or the tribe to figure out whose lands it's on, to figure out who's going to respond to it, what type of crime it is, because within tribal lands, you know, there's a major crimes or misdemeanor crimes. So since trafficking is a major crime, that would have to alert the feds, that would have to alert the tribe, and the state wouldn't have to come through. So it would go straight to the tribe. I know it's hard, but I know it's really hard to understand. And I can share a little map of it here in a bit, but oftentimes if it depends on the crime, and it depends on who's causing the harm and who the victim is. And so when it comes to sex trafficking, oftentimes a lot of non-natives target to do the crime, or just people who cause harm. They target our reservations to do the crime there because they know they'll get away with it. And it's becoming normalized, and you know, which is why it's becoming normalized. And now that we have major laws like the Violence Against Women Act or the Tribal Law and Order Act, it's important that we advocate that all tribes, all pueblos and nations have the right to prosecute non-natives. And that's something that, you know, the United States doesn't want to give our nations and our pueblos, is because we'll have that power to prosecute anyone who could cause harm. And now we don't have that right now. Which is why, you know, the United States is causing harms to nations and pueblos, and we actually have to go through the system of introducing legislation, of introducing new policies to making sure we have that going for us. And we do have that. It's called the Tribal Law and Order Act, but it's expensive, right? It's like the nation wants a new pair of shoes, and we can't have that shoes unless the United States is feels comfortable for us and for us to have it. And you know, like, it's difficult. It's really difficult. And this has been a 500-year struggle in making sure that we have that sovereignty, we have that power to prosecute crimes. And so does that clarify your question? I can expand it a little more at the end. But yeah, so in moving forward, this here, Wilson Joe Chiquito, this happened within these lands that I was showing earlier. Ooh, these ones, counselors right here. So you can see the industry sort of going down here a little more. And counselors right here. And so it was actually more the response time for the fracking explosion actually had better response than a person who goes missing or murdered. And so Wilson Chiquito was murdered on Valentine's Day in 2014. And we still don't know who caused this harm. And yeah, there's a lot of cold cases that we see on our nation and within the state. This is everyone's issue. Let's see, if someone native is the victim of a hate crime, are they allowed to convict a non-native person for it? It's depending on the jurisdiction for that one. So if, like Albuquerque, right? Say it's actually probably more, I'm not sure about here because APD has an ongoing investigation right now, or they're supposed to with the Department of Justice. I've seen that APD is actually causing more harm than protecting our communities, right? We see APD, yeah, causing more harm than protecting our communities. And so depending on where it is for hate crimes. So let's say a hate crime was caused in Albuquerque, which there has, right? Hate crimes with Cowboy and Rabbit, right? Yeah, 3 young people were doing Indian ruling. 3 young people picked on two Dene men on the west side, did some really harmful things, unhumane things to these two Dene men. Right, they bashed them up. They did some really bad things to them, and that was a hate crime. It's Cowboy and Rabbit, if y'all want to look it up. I know the Red Nation did a lot of work in demanding justice for Cowboy and Rabbit. And that was a hate crime. And they've actually, I believe that court is ongoing with the 3 young men who were under the age of 18 that caused that harm. And that is considered a hate crime. As far as the conviction of the 3 young men, I'm unsure right now about it. I think that's some homework that I have to do, but depending on the hate crime, or not depending on the hate crime, depending on the jurisdiction of the hate crime, and these hate crimes happen more often within border towns, right? There's hate crimes, there's a history of hate crimes within these border towns of Albuquerque, of Gallup, of Farmington. There is a research that was done within Farmington about hate crimes, and I'm open to sharing that with y'all. Y'all are asking really good head-on questions, and I continue to welcome those questions. But yeah, depending on the jurisdiction for hate crime, it depends. And actually, right now I'm aware of only one nation that handles hate crime cases and helps families with them. And if they're Dene, depending on the nation or Pueblo again, Navajo Nation has a human rights commission to where they investigate cases that happen to Dene people within these border towns. And they handle the cases, they investigate it on their own. They work with the city, they work with the state on these, and they work with law enforcement. And so I definitely recommend looking at the Navajo Human Rights Commission, and I encourage our cities and I encourage our communities to look at that and figure out ways to assist people who are victims of hate crimes. So I can share that, or if Honey, if you could share it again, the Navajo Human Rights Commission information. Yeah, so they're really good questions. Like starting with hate crimes, right? We got to look at law enforcement, and I believe we all have an unhealthy relationship with law enforcement right now. And I want to share this, the CDC data, that Native Americans are more likely to be killed by law enforcement than any other racial or ethnic groups in the United States. We see this again, especially now with Jolene Nez, who was found murdered within the MDC, within the jail system. We don't know how she was murdered. The Daily Lobo actually shared that information. Again, like brilliant young people, brilliant writers who are bringing this to the forefront, and that's amazing. So if you love to write, if you love to organize, continue to do it. And with that, actually today, today's March 27th. I would like to acknowledge and call in and probably a moment of silence for our sister, L'Oreal Sinigini, who was murdered by a white supremacist cop. This cop, his name is Austin Shipley. He had a record of harming people in Texas. That's where he was before he moved to Winslow. He had a history of causing harm to the community, targeting unsheltered folks, targeting people of color in the city in Texas, and he was actually suspended and removed from there. And he went to Winslow Police Department, got hired there, and had signs, you know, of handing out like petty charges. And then it later led to losing a Dene woman, a Dene mother, and shot her. And it took 8 seconds. It took seconds for him to make a decision to completely take this woman away from us, away from her clan, away from the land, away from our people, away from her daughter. So if we could just give a 30-second moment of silence for our sister here. And it's been 5 years, 5 years without justice, 5 years with the Department of Justice denying this case. Again, white supremacy is through the laws, it's the veins, well, with the court system. And so if we could just give 30 seconds to honor our sister, and if you can today, light some cedar, dedicate some water to her, and knowing and telling her we're still going to be fighting this fight for you. And so I just want to give at least 30 seconds for a moment of silence. Okay, we can come back now. Thank you all. Okay, so in moving forward, her family filed a $10.5 million wrongful death lawsuit against the city. Really nothing came out of this. Again, they've normalized this cop's behavior, and I think we're all going to have that conversation of why police cause harm, right? We can say white supremacy, or we can say abolish the cops, we can say abolish that system and put something in that's different. But all in all, law enforcement has to stop killing people of color. Law enforcement has to stop targeting us, because there are other ways to do this. There are other ways to handle our relatives when they're going through something, and killing them is not the way. So I just want to acknowledge that. And also something about Austin Shipley, he has direct ties to a white supremacist terrorist group that's in Arizona, something similar as Proud Boys. And so I just want to acknowledge that, and that this was intentional, and we see it. And this is an article by Amanda Blackhorse. This was in 2017, 1 year later, and still no justice for L'Oreal. I can send this reading, or if y'all would like to Google it yourself, especially on this day, since it's been 5 years, and just acknowledge it and uplift this struggle in demanding justice for L'Oreal Synergy. So a time check. Thank you, honey. I got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to scoot through this fast for questions at the end. Missing and murdered Indigenous women database and research. Murder is the third leading cause of death among American Indian and Alaska Native. Data is super important in tracking and responding to cases of not only women, but our children, our LGBTQ2+ relatives, men, elders, everyone. This is everyone's issue. In 2016, 5,712 cases were reported, and only 116 of them were logged into the Department of Justice database. So top 10 states with the highest numbers of MMIWG cases: New Mexico, 78. We're at the top. Missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in the southwest cities. So this is a good map that was done by the Urban Indian Health Institute. And it puts, you know, names to stories. It put cases to the land and where exactly these things happen. I remember a couple of these. I'm pretty sure y'all are also might have seen these or have come across these. But this is also on our website under our MMIW information. So if you want to look at this study, everything I'm sharing in here is on our website. So we definitely want to reflect what we present is on our website. So if you want to check that out and get more familiar with this, definitely look at that. Top 10 cities with the highest numbers of MMIWG cases. Albuquerque's at the second with 37. I'm pretty sure it's more. With all of these numbers, I'm pretty sure these numbers aren't accurate. I'm pretty sure it's even higher because they worked with 71 cities. Only 71 cities were surveyed. And so these numbers are definitely higher. So we have two in New Mexico, two cities of New Mexico that are in here, and that's Gallup and Albuquerque. Top 10 cities with the highest number of MMIWG cases that were not in law enforcement records. Again, we have Gallup and Farmington. Recently, the New Mexico state came up with or actually put in a legislation to support an upcoming MMIW task force report. And this report is to the governor and legislators on task force findings and recommendation. This is still ongoing, but this is what they have just as the first year of the report. And what's in the report, right? Role of law enforcement. They've actually got a study from Farmington, Gallup, and APD. It goes over why the U.S. Attorney's Office's reasons for declining cases. They found program service gaps, and I'm pretty sure we can all relate to this, right? The access to mental health and substance abuse support, geographic service gaps, you know, youth services, LGBTQ2+ service gaps, supporting services and families, support tribal justice with resources, education and outreach and other preventative measures are needed, developing community resource for strong responses. And so if you want to take a look at that report, again, it's in our website, but this is somewhat like what it goes over. Again, you know, youth services is a huge service gap. And we want to meet with young people. We want to make sure that young people have the tools to organize on this and moving forward. And so here is just our statement, CSVNW statement on Jolene Nez, an unhoused relative who died in MDC custody. And I just want to read, I can read this, I can brush over it real quick. According to the Daily Lobo, Jolene Nez was cited for littering, a petty charge which ultimately costed her life. We know Native women experience all forms of violence, and unsheltered people experience heightened violence, particularly at the hands of the police and state. Additionally, Native people are most likely to be murdered by law enforcement than any other minority group in the United States. Even more concerning is the cause of Jolene's death remains unknown. According to the Daily Lobo's article, CSVNW demands APD and MDC to be held accountable through a thorough investigation, so an exact investigation down to the root of it. Investigation and call for the termination of Officer Preston Panana and MDC staff without benefits or compensation. Unfortunately, news regarding the mistreatment of unhoused people is heavily underreported. As a result, CSVNW felt responsible to seek justice for Jolene Nez and demand the following: transparency from APD and Bernalillo MDC about circumstances that led to Jolene Nez's death, a full investigation regarding Jolene's manner of death from MDC and prosecutor Pilar A. Borneo, APD officers involved be terminated with cancellation of pension, administrative leave, or any benefits. MDC staff, we demand MDC staff responsible for Jolene's care be held responsible for her death pending a thorough investigation. We demand accountability, oversight, and professionalization of APD and MDC personnel who are involved in over-policing practices, and we demand justice for Jolene Nez. And so if you're a part of an organization, or, if you would like to share this, or if you would like to write a blog about why we demand justice for Native women, definitely you're open to writing a blog for us at the coalition. If you want to organize something, or if you want to just uplift this document, please do, and help us demand justice for Jolene Nez. So there's that. Oh my God, I got 3 minutes. So recommendations, sharing and updating available resources and resources needed to address the ongoing violence, support local missing and murdered Indigenous relative efforts. And so just a couple of local groups that I know that do this type of work is, for one, the Red Nation. I know they're really good at direct action, and I'm also a part of the Red Nation because of this reason, right? Their systems work, but it's also direct action. Direct action works. I feel like we've seen it before. So direct actions, missing or murdered. Let's see. So yeah, supporting groups, Public Action Alliance is also another one. The Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, that's actually one of the first demand documents that we've ever written. So, help us figure out a way to move forward. Support families who are impacted by losing their relative, support nations and pueblos and grassroots movements like direct actions, call on tribal communities to build safe and supportive and brave spaces. I feel like along with safe spaces, we have to look at brave spaces. Is it brave? Is it a brave space to talk about these violences and open that up? Is it safe also? Calling on a higher level of accountability from tribal, state, and federal leaders. Advocate when a citizen from any nation or pueblo goes missing, and advocate when law enforcement is not upholding their trust to the community. What you can do to support the MMIP movement, support donating or writing or interning or, getting involved with the coalition, with Sovereign Bodies Institute. I know Sovereign Bodies Institute hosts a lot of good webinars. So there's that. Definitely looking at their website. Hold on, we got a comment here. As high school students, what can we do to stop Natives from going missing and not getting their justice? How can we spread more awareness about this in our own schools? So in schools, definitely, having a justice, for, Jolene Nez, possibly creating a campaign, right? I think high school students definitely can create campaigns, when a person goes missing or murdered, or even having a campaign about not fracking, or having a campaign about not over policing communities. I know there's a lot of over policing in schools too. But also I think it's important for young people to recognize, honoring their mental health. I think it's important for high school students to start the conversation about, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk to someone. If someone is in a dating violence situation, being that upstander, and asking your friends, are you okay? Is everything okay? Because young people, relationships are hard, and it's hard navigating that as a young person because you're blooming, right? You're blooming into an adult, and you are all very precious right now, and bringing more awareness and violence is really taking care of yourself, checking in, with relatives, just checking in, reading, I think, is a good one. Uplifting stories, even sharing articles is a good one, talking about it, and creating campaigns. So I think that's a really good one. Another question, what is the name of the community in North Dakota from the video, which was described to have had an enormous increase of violence against women since the oil industry expanded into the area? That was the three affiliated tribes of Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation. So you can just, yeah, so that's the name of the community. And then where the oil and gas industry was moving down, that is Standing Rock. So there's three right there. So the three affiliated tribes, they're their own. There's three different nations in there. But because of colonization, they're forced into one group. More movements you can help uplift is the Missing and Murdered Dene Relatives Collective, Three Sisters Collective, which is based out of based out of Santa Fe, the Red Nation, which is based out of Albuquerque, the Indigenous Kinship Collective, which is based out of New York City, and in Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women USA, which is based out of Portland, Oregon. So definitely, look them up on Facebook, on Instagram. All these groups, all these collectives do really good work in pushing forward and demanding justice for our relatives. And these are the MMIW sex trafficking efforts. So I went over these. Resources for sex trafficking, or even just housing services or mental health or substance abuse treatment services. The Lifelink is a really good one. If you have, any suspicions, or if you see anything that's like human trafficking, definitely call 505 Get Free if you have any questions about it. If you want to get to know more about human trafficking or where it's happening or the signs of it, if you know someone who needs housing services or even transitional living situations, like 505 Get Free is a really good one. The Lifelink has really good wraparound services, and it's for everyone. So it's not just for Native people, it's for everyone. The same with First Nations Community Health Source. They service young people. So the thing about this one, though, with the Lifelink is that it's a slippery slope situation when it comes to young people, because I think these ones are geared more towards adults, but it's depending on the type of situation. But with CARES, they're also a human trafficking service, but they also do a lot of other things than up between the difference between the both of them. So East End Cares programs of First Nations provides comprehensive case management services to all Native American, Alaska Native victims of sex trafficking, including women, men, youth, and LGBTQ2+ who are living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and surrounding tribal communities. In addition to case management, the program engages in weekly community outreach, promotes awareness through presentations to families, healthcare providers, and communities to educate them on the issues of human trafficking. So again, this is not just a Native service provider. They provide for everyone. They also do things like if you know someone who needs help applying for like Medicaid or like food stamps, they do that too. They also have like dental, they have a clinic, they have everything there. They do unsheltered outreach programs too. So they do a lot of good work, and it's more direct service. So if you have any questions, the staff are really good. They're also caring, and they do brilliant work. And so definitely call them, hit them up. If you would like to have a presentation with them too, like definitely reach out to them. And here is our contact information. Sorry, honey, I didn't put yours on here, but if you want to share your information, definitely share, honey. So we're at our closing, and I just want to leave y'all with this meme by our elder, LaDonna Brave Bull Allard, who is a Lakota Standing Rock elder, and she actually heard the young people and made space for young people to create Sacred Stone Camp, and demanding the nation to come through and start the North Dakota Access to stop NoDAPL, to start the camp and moving forward. And that is so she said this, the abuse of women is well known in history and tells you a lot about what is happening to our earth. And so, young people, y'all are definitely our future, and I want to uplift y'all and let you know that we're right behind you. And as a young person blooming into an adult now, I'm definitely here to help y'all. And if y'all are organizing anything, definitely invite the coalition. We're here. If y'all need information, definitely look at our website. But we are here for y'all. And also to mention, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, but we're gonna do our best to call, more of the MMIWP, the missing or murdered Indigenous peoples. This goes beyond. So this is not only happening in the United States. This is happening to the Indigenous peoples in Canada, the nations up there, and then the nations down south within Central America. So all of us are all in this together, and I definitely want to uplift that, and that we are all relatives, and that this is everyone's issue. So thank you all. Sending all my blessings and love to you. We're here, and we have an event coming up. We're having Honey and I are co-organizing a reclaiming land and body gathering, which will focus on land and body violence. We went through this we went through just the top of it, right? This issue, we just went to the water top of it. And so if you want to join us, Honey has submitted our links. So we're doing a lot, and we welcome y'all. If you want to learn more about how to organize, or if you want to get more information about how do you talk about this, or just putting it in your organizing toolbox, because so we invite you to all of our events. And so thank you, Honey, for sharing. We have our Dene Matriarchs Resistance to Fracking registration link there. We have our Reclaiming Land and Body one. I think it's right under, is it right under that one, Honey? So Reclaiming Land and Water Gathering, and we have good folks coming. Huh?
I said, yeah.
Oh, okay. So that it's underneath it. So definitely signed up. Then we have our 7th annual Tribal Leaders Summit. If you know of any tribal leaders, or even representatives that work with nations and pueblos, definitely have them come through. And then for the first time ever, we're having our Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we're having our first ever bringing awareness of bringing awareness through a 5K. And we have one for pets. So definitely bringing out your pets to walk with you. And so there's that. And then is there anything else I'm missing, Honey?
I don't think so. That's it. Just save the day for April 30th for your pets and yourself for a Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes, y'all. Thank you so much. If I think that's about it. If y'all don't have any other questions, please take care of yourself, drink some water, and do good.